Okay, so happy Social Work Month, everybody. March is Social Work Month, and one thing you can never say about a social worker is they don't have enough to do. We are usually busy helping, serving, doing all the things, trying to meet deadlines, filling in for someone, hosting a training, teaching, making sure our clients have access to quality care, and all at the same time. Whatever the doing, it's an action that in some capacity aligns with the theme for Social Work Month this year, which is breaking barriers. Historically, our work as change agents is to do just that, to break a barrier and create a path for someone else. And this series of conversations has been a phenomenal opportunity to highlight the many ways that we do that as social workers. And we've had some brilliant social workers come out and share their stories and give us like a behind the scenes of that. So I'm really glad that everyone is here and listening and tuning in as we continue to celebrate the profession. My name is Amanda Flood. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, speaker, coach, entrepreneur, and creator of this audacious project, trying to interview a social worker a day for the month of March. Today's guest is one of probably the busiest social workers that I know, but she's doing the thing out here. It took a minute to coordinate our schedules to get this one going, but it makes sense with what's on her plate. Her expertise is in networking, advocacy, collaboration, engaging with diverse populations, policy, practice, juvenile justice reform, trauma-informed care. She is the board chair for the Women's Diversity Network, education co-chair for the Urban League State of Black Long Island, the New York State Partnership for Youth Justice Regional Representatives, serving on the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Advisory Committee, and Gender Responsiveness and Detention Work Groups. She's also a member of the Nassau County Commissioner Community Council and African American Leaders, and a member of the American Educational Research Association, amongst several other coalitions and committees, in addition to just her like day-to-day life and day-to-day work, right? So welcome, Miss Erika Deans. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
And we're gonna dive right in. So what does breaking barriers mean to you?
Okay, so when I think of barriers, and I love the design of our t-shirts, because it is breaking. So when we think about something that's a barrier for us, we think about how it is like something like a wall put up, right? And social workers are unafraid to go through that wall. So breaking barriers to me is the social worker's skill set to break through that wall, to fight for social justice. We're unafraid to walk in certain rooms that some other disciplines are afraid to. We are unafraid to stand up, for unfair treatment. Some people may think of some conversations as taboo. I think social workers are unafraid to have those conversations when it comes to not only social justice, but racial justice and mental wellness as a whole. I adore that, our discipline is unafraid to break barriers.
Ooh, I love it. We are not afraid.
We are not afraid.
I love it. Now, a place where fear might come in sometimes is around this idea of like building a network. And I think it's something that I really admire about you and the work that you do. I feel like networking is a skill and it's something that is effective for change, right? So how have you developed that over the course of your career? And are there other skills that social workers need to be successful?
Yes, I think networking is like number one, because like I said, we would not be able to walk into those rooms. We would not be able to sit at those tables. We would not be able to have those courageous conversations if we didn't have a network standing with us, behind us, in front of us, and that will open the door for us. So networking is essential part of social workers. We know that we cannot do this alone, and that's why we're called social workers, right? Plural. Because we need that network.
Putting it all together now.
We need to put that network into action and know that, our famous term, it takes a village. Yeah. And in our village, it's the social workers having our back. And we also, network with people outside of our industry. Right?
Oh, that's important too, right? We need like the different perspectives.
Right, because we want to be able to come into anything from the boardroom to politics to the classroom. So we need all of those entities to network as well so we can collectively, make these changes happen. How was it for me? I kind of consider myself a people person. So, walking into rooms, I think I got something from my grandmother where we would be out and, you could be on a grocery line and, just familiar faces, a smile, then a welcoming hello and a conversation can, really open some doors for you. So, you can't be, a shy person and effectively network. So just having that open mind, cultural competence is a lot to play with it, to go with it, I'm saying. And just being able to have conversations with people, help to build that network. Collect that information so you never know who you may need in the future. So, share your contact information. Nowadays social media is a great way to have connections, especially on LinkedIn. Right?
Yeah, it makes it a little easier.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of the connections and networking.
So like you're saying, sort of like lean into it, don't be afraid, and kind of use the skills. Really, that's like the core of social work, right? Which is just people and meeting people where they are.
Meeting people where they are, yes. Listening, right? That's another skill that's essential to have. Listening to understand, right? Not listening to eject, not listening to justify, not listening to judge, but listening to understand who's standing in front of you. Having cultural humility is a big thing. And patience, right? Because we know, especially in our field, nothing happens overnight. So practicing patience is essential, for us as social workers.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder because a lot of times we want things to happen right away, but we don't realize that it can take time, right? Change could take time. Relationships take time. Growth takes time.
Right. This is from every aspect, from the individual who we're working with to the communities that we, want to affect change with, to, the grander idea of affecting social change and racial justice and stuff like that. All of those things take time. And it goes back to meeting everyone where they are. Because that room or that person, whoever we are touching to try to help affect change, it's not going to happen overnight. So we definitely have to practice patience.
mm. Mm. You mentioned the racial justice, and that just kind of triggered another question for me. How did you get into that field, or how is it all sort of connected, all the different parts of you and what you do? Because I think sometimes thinking about our social workers coming into this, we don't always know what we want to do, right? And people are trying to figure themselves out, or they don't know how to like land in a certain place, or just how to make all the things work together. So I'm just wondering about that from your perspective. How did you get into this specific aspect, whether it be the racial justice work or some of the reform work? How does it fit for you? How did you get there? What can you tell the people?
So it wasn't planned. And that's usually what happens, right?
Right.
We go into social work with this grandiose idea is this is the population we want to work with and this is what we want to do.
Or are we gonna save everybody?
Right. I'm a professor, adjunct professor at Nassau Community College. I'm also a field instructor. And that is one of the things that I ask early on to my students is how many of you all came into this field wanting to help? Right. And what does help look like for you, right? And
right.
not to take away from you wanting to help, but just kind of understanding what that help means, right? Does that help mean that helping them is also going to make you feel better? Or are you truly helping because you want to see a change in that person? And then it goes back to what you said before with the meeting a person where they are. Because ideally, we have these ideas of our help making these significant changes, and the person that you are working with has a different idea of that. So we have to make sure that we're not putting our stuff onto them and thinking that the way we want them to change and our help is the best help. But going back to how I got into the juvenile justice, criminal justice, racial and ethnic disparities, justice reform was by accident. I had an opportunity from a colleague of mine who told me about a position in the county about 10 years ago. And when I first looked at the description, I was like, I never did that before.
Right.
So, I don't know what this is. And she was like, no, just try. I really appreciate her seeing something in me that I didn't see at the time. But when I got there, I loved it.
Wow.
I loved it. Just with social work, I think
Mm.
what comes with this is like giving ourselves like a grand purpose. And that's
Mm.
what like I love about the fight. That's what I love about the help. Being able to have a purpose in fighting for social justice, fighting for racial and ethnic disparities, especially in a system that often oppresses Black and brown children, Black and brown adults. The criminal justice system, juvenile justice system is not an easy system to work. And
Right.
often I was tasked as a representative for Nassau County to go to Albany. And in the earlier days when I first started, I was the only Black woman in the room.
Wow.
And only one of two Black
Mm.
persons in the room, because there
Mm.
was another Black gentleman. As the years went on,
It expanded.
recognizing that change, it was hard sitting at that table listening to certain things. But again, I'm proud that I was one of those unafraid people to speak my truth. And my state leader knew that, and he was a Black man, and he knew that we were definitely, the minorities in that room. And he loved that I would, speak up. So he would kind of be like, hey, make sure you say, and trying to
Right.
help me get our point across, because it was needed in that room, because that's, like I said, it's not an easy fight.
Mm.
I have since left
Mm.
because government is rough. And it can be draining. And one thing I love about social work is that we are in so many different rooms,
Oh
and when
yeah.
we feel, maybe our time at this particular entity has come to a standstill or a
Right.
halt, or we feel like we're being depleted, we can pick that up and take our skills and go almost
You pivot.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Almost anywhere. We can pivot anywhere.
Yeah.
I haven't lost that energy to fight. I just didn't want to fight it in that realm. So
Right.
it's easier to fight the system when you're not in the system.
Yeah, and it gives you a different perspective. Sometimes it like ignites something different in you when you do shift out of a space. So I think it's great to be in something for a season. Um, and something I hope social workers do too is that like we do commit and give ourselves the best opportunity to serve others and to also learn, because I'm sure you learned a lot in that
Oh my
time,
goodness, yes.
right?
And one of the things that I value is that I can take that experience and take it with me to the next step. So I
Right.
can take everything that I've learned. I was in that field for almost 10 years. So that understanding of the justice system, that understanding of those policies and procedures, I work diligently on even in the playing field for our Black and brown children, because I worked in the juvenile justice. And we highlighted the disparities within the system, whether it's from the arrest to length of stay, incarceration, resources available to the children and their families. And it gave me such a sense of purpose to have those hard conversations with people that wasn't always ready to hear them.
Right.
But needed to hear them, because how can you say you want to sit on a committee that is working on policy change when you can't
Right.
even have these tough conversations?
Right, right. And then you're missing out on like the depth and the value of like what's really happening and what's really needed. You can't make change, but you don't understand what you're making the change for, or
Change
what it's
for,
really about, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. No, amazing. And um I think just the idea of commitment to something is super important, because I think I don't know if it's our work ethic, but something is shifting in social work as well. I think probably across lots of professions, and again, how committed people are to the work. And systems work is challenging. But again, like you learn so much, and it's so valuable for you to come in into that space and be there, as long as you can be there. If you need to pivot, I think that's awesome, because you can take those skills with you if you're able to stay. I think that's awesome too, right? Whatever works for you, but like, don't give up, right? When we give up, it's like we're missing out opportunities ourselves, and we're missing out the bit that we can do to affect a system and change it. But change is slow. Change takes time, like we're saying earlier. So we may not see it in the full capacity that we want, but just being there is such a difference. So I hope that's something that people really hear, the value of being committed.
And we say also, as long as one person heard us, right, that one person can take that conversation and have another conversation. Not looking to affect everyone in the room, but somebody got it. Somebody heard you, somebody got it, somebody is taking that information and sharing it amongst, their peers. So, just kind of showing them what a real ally looks like.
Hey, it becomes this like domino effect of breaking barriers. And that's what
exactly. Yes.
So tell us, what is one thing people find surprising about your work as a social worker?
I know when I first got introduced to social work, because I call myself a late bloomer, what I knew growing up as a social worker and what many of like family and friends thought was they were the people who either worked at DSS or the people who took your children away.
I know, it's like that's the only jobs that exist for us, right?
Right. So I love to, share with, everyone who will listen, everyone who will hear, who wants to understand what I do for a living, is that we're so much more. We are in every facet of life. We're in the hospital, we're in the school, we're in the jails, right? We're at the boardroom, we're in politics, we're everywhere. And affecting social justice change, not just trying to fix someone, because the idea of our culture is, we don't trust, we don't want to go to get therapy.
Right.
We think someone is trying to, instill some things in us that we don't believe. We're afraid that they might tell somebody on us. So just trying to understand what therapy is. So, and what we do on a macro level as far as promoting policy change and policy, justice, social justice, and stuff like that. I just want them to understand the many facets of social.
Yeah, we're not the bad guys, right? I feel like we may have to be like the Grinch of Christmas, right?
You're like, oh, I don't want to go. Or, and this is really quick, the comparison between social workers and like psychologists when it comes to therapy, right? I had a client say, oh, they signed me up for therapy, and it was only a social worker. I was like, okay, and so what did that mean to you? So just kind of
I agree with that. Like we have the same value. I think there may be some things that psychologists that they're trained to do a little bit differently, but it's not that we aren't both trained to be therapists, right? And provide care, right? And in some ways, just like they have, some things that they can lean on, we also have more that we can lean on, because we also understand how to look at people holistically, how to look at people within systems and the macro things that might be needed, right? The meso community things that might be needed. And we can really bring all the skill sets to you. But that's definitely a conversation, I think, that's worth being continued, because I felt that too. I did this article once with someone pretty big newspaper outlet, and it was a little bit upsetting, because the way how they wrote it, there was this comparison between social work and psychologists, and it was clear to me that they also thought that psychologists held more value than the social worker that was a therapist, right? But we go through extensive training, right? Like we've got to do a certain amount of hours, a lot, not even a certain amount. It's like almost like 3 years worth of hours in supervision training to do what we do.
Right. Especially if you want to be a LC. Right. And it's like we're not in competition. And, although we have similarities, both disciplines are great in their own way.
Absolutely.
So for the comparison and then to hold one in higher regard, it's a little disheartening because we have done the work. We have done the work.
Absolutely.
And then I also, correct people who confuse caseworkers with social workers, because I feel like social workers, we have done the work, we have gotten our license, we have completed our master's degrees, and so forth and so on, and all of the extra educational trainings that we have to go to maintain our license, that I think is a little different as well. So when some people criticize some things that maybe a caseworker has done, I'm like, that's not a social worker. So they are working at their capacity, and then, we are working at ours. So those are the things I want people to kind of understand about our
right. Put some respect on my name.
Yes. Put some respect on my degree.
Right. Oh my goodness. Ooh, I love it. Okay, so one more for you. Finish the sentence. I wish people understood social workers, ...
I wish people understood that social workers are people too.
Yeah.
And we are human, and we are not perfect, and we're not trying to be perfect. We out here having that same struggle. Most of us have had that same struggle that you have, oppression, all of those things. So I just want people to know that social workers are people too.
Oh, brilliant. Yes. Listen, Erika, thank you so much for just holding
Thank
space for
you
this
for having
conversation
me.
today. Yes.
Thank you,
Woo.
thank you. Go social workers.
Hey, yes. Listen, we appreciate all that you do. And, thanks for thinking bigger than the degree, for taking a risk on a job that you didn't even think was for you, right? And really continuing to transform service delivery in all capacities that you do in all the scope of your practice. On behalf of the profession, like if I'm somebody, honey, we applaud you.
Appreciate you thinking about me, asking me onto your platform, and giving me a moment to share. So thank you so much, and we applaud you too.
To everyone listening, a happy Social Work Month. And if you don't know a social worker, you better go find one and get to know us, because we're just a whole different ball game. And just continue to advocate for the work that we do, and that we are at tables, and that we are on the same level as everyone else, because clearly we're putting in the work to do it. But we can't, get to that level of acknowledgement that we need without folks supporting us too. So help us continue to break barriers.
Yes. Thank you.
Happy Social Work Month.